Good evening, guys. Nick from Truth Blitz News. I hope you guys are having a good night. And I want to talk about the anti gun agenda and how it is complete hogwash, pun intended. It is the most one sided thing that you will see, okay? And I say it's one sided because anybody who is pro gun, all right, is not being heard. Their voices are being suppressed. You have this March for Our Lives that happened today in Washington. They will have you believe that it was this huge grassroots movement, that all these children came together and started, to organize to have this huge march, and that could not be further from the truth. This was a march where children, thousands and thousands and thousands of children, were used as political pawns, so that they can trick the public into thinking that every child in this country is fed up. They hate guns. They want guns out of the country, banned, no ownership, and that is basically what it comes down to. This was put together by very rich and powerful anti-gun elites, okay, from Hollywood elites to huge anti-gun groups and politicians and people like Mayor Bloomberg. It's staggering that people actually think this was put together by children. The only thing the children had to do with this was, yes, they were there. They touted them around and, had them do speeches, just as the surviving students, the four main ones that you've seen all over the news since the Parkland incident, have been doing, but this is just on a larger scale. Okay, and of course David Hogg was there, and we're going to get into that in a minute, but basically there's going to be probably some changes for the worse coming, because a lot of these children are very young and impressionable. Some may be old enough to vote now. High school usually graduate 17, 18. Some will be old enough to vote by the time the midterms happen. And there is a good chance that Democrats are going to take control. And I can tell you, well, first of all, let me just get this straight. After the spending bill last night, I don't see a difference in the two parties anyway. However, I will say that there are few, if any, Democrats that are actually pro-Second Amendment. So in that sense, yes, it worries me if Democrats take control. And that is what the anti-gun elite want. That is what the agenda is. They have a bigger agenda than that they cannot carry out if there is an armed populace. Okay, political power grows from the barrel of a gun. And that is an actual quote. Look it up. And it's about as true as it gets. Okay, we are the last resistance against a tyrannical takeover of this country. And that is why the Second Amendment was in the Bill of Rights to begin with. So they can say these things like they want common sense gun reform. They just want stronger background checks and to ban military weapons. Well, let's get this straight also. First of all, military weapons are already banned. Second of all, the background check system in this country is only broken because people aren't being added to the database like they should. People aren't reporting to the next system. So people slide through the cracks. Also, let's cover the fact that the vast majority of gun crimes in this country are basically carried out using pistols, not assault weapons. It's a very small portion. And these are all facts that the anti-gun elite know. But they are going to basically start with what's easiest in their eyes. And it's easiest and easier to sway public opinion when it comes to assault rifles and high capacity magazines. Um, pistols, handguns, things of that nature are going to be harder, especially with the Heller decision. Okay, so they're going to start with what's easiest to them. Well, we already had an assault weapons ban once in this country. We can do it again. All right, and so back to this march. As you can see in this article, there was a nonprofit that was started to hide the donors of this march. Now, why would they do that? Well, it's simple. They did that because if it was shown who the donors were of this march, then we would know who was behind it and that it, in fact, was not a grassroots movement of fed up kids. All right. And the donors go anywhere from powerful people to celebrities. Okay. So, here is some of the Hollywood people that basically donated, and it talks in this article about George Clooney, who gave $500 million. Okay, I'm sorry, $500,000, $500,000. And that's just a drop in the bucket. Okay, you have Mayor Bloomberg. There's a ton of people that gave money, and it is because they are anti-gun. They are working and all carrying out their parts in making sure this agenda moves forward. So, like I said, David Hogg and the other 3 children that have been all over the news since the incident were there. And I want to get into a couple clips quickly. But first, let's get into this picture real quick. And this is disgusting to me. This is Emma Gonzalez tearing up the Bill of Rights, tearing up the Constitution. Now, it's her right. She has a First Amendment right to do this, to take a photo doing this. And I find it ironic because, this document that she's tearing up guarantees her the right to tear up this document and take a picture of herself, or have a picture of her taken of herself doing it. But that does not make it any less disgusting. Okay, because this is how the message in this is clear. It's plain as day. All right, the message is F your Constitution. All right, F your Second Amendment. We don't care. Our agenda is moving forward. That is the message in this picture. All right, and it makes me sick to my stomach. It really does. All right, I remember in high school, we had a rifle team, and I graduated high school in 1999. All right, we had guns at school. We had kids that brought their rifles to school, and I don't live in, Alabama or South Carolina or somewhere like that. I live in a very liberal state, unfortunately, for the moment anyway. But back on the subject, things have changed drastically from when I graduated high school. And, it just really, really makes me sick. It really does. Now, let's talk about another thing about this picture, and this kind of has to do with it. We're going to talk about David Hogg and how the fact that they have to wear clear backpacks now violates his First Amendment. So let's watch that. It's kind of funny.
Now it's disgusting. One more about school. You mentioned your backpack. What do they do with your backpacks?
I think after we come back from spring break, they're requiring all of us to have clear backpacks. I think one of the other important things to realize is many students want their privacy. There are many, for example, females at our school when they go through their menstrual cycle, they don't want people to see their tampons and stuff. Now, it's just. It's unnecessary, it's embarrassing for a lot of the students, and it makes them feel isolated and separated from the rest of American school culture, where they're having essentially their First Amendment rights infringed upon because they can't freely wear whatever backpack they want, regardless of what it is. It has to be a clear backpack. What we should have is just more policies that make sure that these students are feeling safe and secure in their schools.
Okay, so having to wear clear backpacks violates their First Amendment, according to David Hogg. All right, so this is a very leftist point of view. Well, traditionally, but not anymore. The First Amendment, we need to make sure we preserve the First Amendment. Okay, well, right after the first is what? That's the one that they want gone, okay? Now, Emma Gonzalez is in that picture I showed you. She obviously must not care about the First Amendment because she wants to tear up the whole Constitution. So, they want to worry about their First Amendment rights and what backpack they can wear. Is that covered in the First Amendment? I don't think they wrote about backpacks in the Constitution, but they did write about firearms. That I do know. Anyway, so let's get on to this young man's speech, okay? And there's another clip that I was going to play that I'm not going to, of him cursing and cussing out the governor of Florida and dropping F-bombs, and he wants to be able to hide behind the fact that he's a kid, so nobody can say anything negative towards him. And by the way, this is not bullying. I'm doing nothing but stating facts and showing video clips that are on mainstream media. I'm not calling him any names. I'm not doing anything. So if YouTube wants to take down my video saying it's bullying, harassing, it's not, and I will fight it. So let's get into his speech today, and I'll talk a little bit about that.
First off, I'm going to start off by putting this price tag right here as a reminder for you guys to know how much Marco Rubio took for every student's life in Florida. $1.05. Okay. The cold grasp of corruption shackles the District of Columbia.
Yeah, it does.
The winter is over. Change is here. The sun shines on a new day, and the day is ours. For the first-time voters show up 18% of the time at midterm elections. Not anymore. Now, who here is going to vote in the 2018 election?
Like I said, and you can rest assured they're all
If you
gonna vote
listen real
Democrat.
close, you can hear the people in power shaking.
Except for Nancy Pelosi.
They've gotten
and Chuck
used to being
Schumer.
protective of their position,
Usual
choosing
gang.
the safety of inaction. Inaction is no longer safe, and to that we say, no more. 96 people die every day from guns in our country, yet most representatives have no public stance on guns. And to that, we say, no more. We are going to make this the voting issue. We're going to take this to every election, to every state and every city. We're going to make sure the best people get in our elections to run, not as politicians, but as Americans.
Not the best people, the anti-gun
Because
people.
this,
Let's get it straight.
this is not cutting it. When people try to suppress your vote, and there are people who stand against you because you're too young, we say no more. When politicians say that your voice doesn't matter because the NRA owns them, we say no more. When politicians send their thoughts and prayers with no action, we say no more. And to those politicians supported by the NRA that allow the continued slaughter of our children and our future, I say get your resumes ready. Today is the beginning of spring, and tomorrow is the beginning of democracy. Now is the time to come together, not as Democrats, not as Republicans, but as Americans. Americans of the same flesh and blood that care about one thing and one thing only, and that's the future of this country and the children that are going to lead it.
This country is led by these children. We're
Now,
fucking
they will try to
screwed.
separate us in demographics. They will try to separate us by religion, race, congressional district, and
Yeah.
class.
The network
They
that's touting you
will
around does that.
fail. We will come together. We will get rid of these public servants that only serve the gun lobby. And we will save lives. You are those heroes. Lastly, let's put the USA over the NRA. This is the start of the spring and the blossoming of our democracy. So let's take this to our local legislators, and let's take this to midterm elections, because without the persistent heat, without the persistence of voters and Americans everywhere getting out to every election, democracy will not flourish, but it can and it will. So I say to those politicians that say change will not come, I say we will not stop until every man, every woman, every child,
Is the
and
song.
every American can live without fear of gun violence. And to that I say, no more. Thank you. I love you all. God bless all of you, and God bless America.
All right. First of all, it's obvious he didn't write that speech. It's not good. It really isn't, because a lot of these kids, like I said, are very impressionable. A lot of them are going to be going to vote for the first time, and because they're so impressionable, you know, they now associate guns with nothing but killing children, okay? Because that is what the mainstream media has been pushing on them. That is what David Hogg and his 3 friends from Parkland High School have been pushing on them on the mainstream media. Blame the NRA. Blame pro-gun Americans. Blame everybody except for the people who possibly could have stopped this killing, like the sheriff's deputy that stood down, like the people who, also the sheriff's deputies who didn't do anything, the police department who did nothing when they were called to, I'm not going to say his name, were called to his house numerous times and knew that he had guns and failed to take them. No, we're going to blame the people who had nothing to do with it. We're going to blame the law-abiding citizen that is pro-Second Amendment. We're going to blame everybody but who should be getting the blame. And we're going to make sure that countless dollars are pumped into this agenda to disarm America and hidden inside of a nonprofit. So, you know, again, this is what's happening, and I really fear that it's going to get a lot worse. And you know, it will not stop with an assault weapons ban. It will not stop with a high capacity magazine ban. It will not stop there. That will only be the beginning, and you can rest assured that that is the case. So again, I just had to come out and talk about this. You know, it's really sad when in a relatively short period of time, we went from a country that is a constitutional republic to basically heading towards a full Marxist totalitarian dictatorship, and that is where we are going. All right, I can't stress this enough. Everybody who is pro-gun, everybody who is pro Second Amendment needs to get out to the polls during the midterms, because regardless of how I feel about Republicans right now because of this spending bill, we need to preserve the Second Amendment. They talk about March for Our Lives, and you know, the youth of America depends on sensible gun laws. Okay, well, the youth of America depends on the Second Amendment. And I can promise you that if we are disarmed, things are going to rapidly take a turn for the worst. And, you know, I'll leave it at that. So anyway, guys, that's pretty much it for now. Until next time, it's Nick from Truth Blitz News, and I will see you guys later.